Okay. Good afternoon, students of IRUD Summer Course 2021. My name is Marcelino Ludwig Putra Sirait, and today I will be the moderator for this session. Before I start, please turn on your camera since the attendance will be monitored through your screen appearance. And for this session, we have two PICs, and you may look at them in the participants list in your Zoom applications on the bottom of the screen. And now we are going to have a session with Madam Stephanie Dambron with the main topic of gastrodiplomacy and Indonesian restaurants in European nations, especially in France. The session will be delivered, as I said before, by Madam Stephanie Dambron. And if I may introduce Madam Stephanie to the audience, can we have her CV shared through the screen?
Hi.
Yeah,
I'll introduce myself a bit more after as well.
Yeah, okay,
Yes,
continue, Marcel.
Okay, Madam Stephanie Dambron was born in 1987. She spent her childhood in Indonesia as she attended French School of Jakarta in Cipete. She is also a Science Po graduate and also has a degree in finance and strategy, with her specialty being in international business. She is the founder of Jawa Restaurant, which currently has 5 branches, all situated within Paris, and the 6th installment coming in November in the city of Bordeaux. As you may see on the screen, the concept of Jawa Restaurant is to envision the Indonesian lifestyle in Paris and also to celebrate Indonesia's hospitality and culture while also bringing a modern twist to family's cuisine. This gives the Parisians the unique experience of actually being in Indonesia and also tasting the trademark savory cuisines the archipelagic nation of Indonesia has. And without further ado, let's say hi to Madam Stephanie. Bonjour, Madame Dambron.
Bonjour, Marcel.
Comment allez-vous, Madame?
Ça va bien. Et vous?
Ça va bien aussi, Madame. It's very great to hear from you, ma'am. And it's also a delight and an honor to have you here today in this evening's edition of IRUD Summer Course. And now, without further ado, let us all hear the topic that Madam Dambron has in store for us. Ma'am, would you like to share the screen?
Yes,
or
absolutely.
Shall we? Oh. Okay, ma'am. The screen and time is yours. Please, ma'am.
Thank you. Are all the students Indonesian?
Some of the students attending our course this afternoon also are from international nationalities, ma'am. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation, and hello, everyone. So today I would like to talk to you about gastrodiplomacy. So diplomacy through gastronomy, and with the example of Indonesian cuisine. We want to use Indonesian cuisine as a soft power tool to achieve diplomatic goals by increasing the nation's value in the foreign public eyes through food. And I haven't made a lot of theoretical studies on it, but what I will share to you today is my experience of, my case study, which is the development of this restaurant chain in France called Jawa. And our dream is to bring Indonesian gastronomy to the world through an ambitious and relevant development strategy. I've already been introduced. I would like just to add that to start, what I did was to create a catering business in Paris to test my recipes and to test the potential with French people in Paris. And when I saw that there was a lot of potential, I found the local investors and launched the first restaurant in 2012. And it was nominated at a competition for new food concepts. And then we opened in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 4 more restaurants in Paris. And we survived through COVID, and now we're opening a 6th restaurant in Bordeaux at the end of the year. Today, I manage the financial, administrative, technical, and legal aspects. But I have a very complementary partner called Frederick, who is also half French, half Indonesian. His mom is also Manadonese. And he always lived in France. He studied business, worked in digital marketing firm, and he helped me transform Jawa as a brand and as a chain. Today, he is in charge of the day-to-day operations, recruitment, and sales optimization. So that's it for the introduction. What is the concept Jawa? Most of you probably haven't been to Paris and to my restaurant, so I will give you a small view of what it is. So it's a unique concept worldwide. What we do is we make homemade recipes of iconic Indonesian dishes adapted to a French large customer base. So for those who know what it is, we do rendang daging, opor ayam, sate ayam, nasi goreng, mie goreng, etc. We assemble all of our spices with a mix of authenticity, modernity, and local twist. So we don't do fusion food, but we adapt things like the level of spices, and the format. And our promise to our customers is a casual but exotic trip in a cozy and modern decor with a flavorful meal served by a welcoming staff in an easy-to-eat format in great city locations. We try to offer the best products, if possible, organic and local, respectful of your health and of the environment, at an affordable price, while limiting our environmental impact. To give you a picture of one of our restaurants here on the right. So we try to make a cozy atmosphere with a very codified decoration. Our logo, as you have seen before, is a monkey, which is emblematic of Indonesia's fauna. We use warm colors and plants that remind us of Indonesia's tropical landscapes. We use wood for the furniture and as art panels for the decoration. We use rattan for the seatings and the lightings. All of these are typical Indonesian materials. We use fabrics and wallpapers that are inspired by batik or ikat, even if sometimes it's modernized. The colors of the blue-green faience at the back, that you can see in the back of the bar, they resonate with the oceans surrounding the biggest archipelago of the world. And we also use modern graphic creations on the packaging and on some posters to complement Jawa's universe. So I would like to give you more concrete examples of how I select the iconic dishes and how I adapt them to the local market. Because this is the main point of how to reach a foreign eye. So I choose iconic dishes that are iconic in Indonesia, first of all, because I don't do fusion food. So for example, the rendang Padang has been promoted by CNN as #1 of their world's 50 most delicious food. I don't remember the year, I think 2015. It is a dish that is very memorable, very intense in taste, and very unique. But when I first introduced it in my restaurants in 2012, I saw that French people found it too spicy and too dry. They kept on asking for more sauce, more sauce, more sauce. So today, my version of the rendang is less, of course, much less spicy than in Sumatra. But also, it is what Indonesians would call a rendang basah or a kalio, which is a sort of curry that is in a quite liquid sauce. I had to adapt this product. Another example is the mie goreng. The French do love noodles, but it is in competition with other famous noodle dishes like Japanese ramen or pad thai, which use better quality noodles, or at least that's what it appears like in their eyes, in the French people's eyes. So that was quite a difficult dish to introduce to French people, because in terms of noodles, I had to choose something that maybe was a bit different from what we have in Indonesia, because they appear like dried noodles in the eyes of French people. So that is an adaptation that I had to make. And now today we use noodles that are a little bit thicker than the most traditional ones that we can find everywhere in Indonesia. Also, you also have to watch out for how to pronounce the words, because, for example, for the mie goreng, mie is not a word that is practical in English, because there's the word mie saya, and in French it means the inside of the bread. So that's why in my menu I don't even write it M-I-E, I write it M-I, because for the French it's a bit different. I also choose dishes that are compatible in terms of taste with the French palate. There's something, the Indonesians who come ask me for a lot of different dishes, for example, mpempe. But for me, mpempe wouldn't appeal at all to French customers, because it has a very strange fishy smell and a very weird texture. For those who don't know mpempe, they're sort of balls with fish paste that are fried. And it would be too weird for French people, at least for a large public. I also choose dishes that can be marketed easily. For example, martabak manis could be sold as pancakes. And pancakes is a concept that Europeans can easily imagine, because it exists in their own culture. And they can visualize it. A counterexample is lontong. It's something that I would like to do in my restaurants, but you don't know how to present it. It's a concept that Europeans don't know. And the offer also needs to be simplified. For example, in Indonesia, you have hundreds of sorts of satay and of soto that come from everywhere, from different islands. But we actually need to choose one classic soto or one classic satay sauce. And we need to give more importance to the looks of the chosen dish, because today social media is very, very important for our advertisement. And we have to think of all the new dishes that we suggest with how it will look on Instagram. Of course, we compose with ingredients that can be found locally. That is how I started, even with my catering business. All the recipes, I invented them with ingredients that I could find in Paris. And last, we have to offer the services that are truly needed on the international market. So, for example, if you're, you need to go to the customer. Instead of him going to you, you need to go to the customer. And for that, you need to find locations that are very central in the city of Paris, for example. So I didn't try to get a location far from the center and cheaper. I wanted to go in the center, even if it's more expensive. Sorry. And for example, if I get a location, sorry. If I get a location in an office area, we need to offer very quick service. It needs to be affordable and practical to eat. For example, the rendang meat needs to be pre-cut. And for the satay, at the beginning, when I started, we used to make the satay, the chicken pieces on skewers, like in Indonesia, the sate-satein. But in office areas, actually people are very well dressed and they found it very unpractical to use skewers. So now we don't use skewers anymore. It's just pieces of meat, of chicken, in the peanut sauce. So what is important here is that our offer is completely market approved. We tried to make an exotic, healthy, and sexy menu. And to give you an idea, French people are very keen on Asian food. And for the last 20 years, the number of Asian restaurants went from 6,000 to 20,000 in France. But the Indonesian restaurants are massively underrepresented, with less than 20 restaurants in the whole of France, including my 6 Jawa units. But yet, it doesn't mean that Indonesian gastronomy doesn't have the potential. It has enormous advantages. The advantage of being diverse in terms of products. We can make meat, seafood, vegetables, etc. In terms of tastes, Indonesian cuisine has sweet and sour and spicy and aromatic, etc. In terms of cooking techniques, we have long simmered dishes that are cooked for hours. We have fried dishes. We have baked. We have barbecued, everything. And we have dishes that are adapted to the new European trends. So we have salads with the gado-gado, for example. We have vegan options, gluten-free options, and we can easily propose fresh and balanced dishes. So as a result, the French can discover Indonesian cuisine presented in a trendy way, using all the sales channels possible. Today we serve on site. There is takeaway food, there is click and collect, and there is the delivery. And I don't have the statistics on this, but discussing with my customers, I know that many of our customers go as tourists to Indonesia after discovering Jawa in France. Whereas before they didn't even know, like most people in France don't even know that Indonesia is a country. It's starting, but sometimes you still hear people, sorry, you still hear people saying, oh, is Bali near Indonesia? They don't even know that Bali, which is the most well-known island, that Bali is part of the country Indonesia. So we're very proud to make French people discover Indonesia through our brand. So to come back to this subject of gastrodiplomacy through cuisine, indeed, Indonesian cuisine can be a great soft power in the foreign public eyes if it is well adapted to the local market, and even more effective if done in a large scale. Because if you have traveled a little bit in different countries abroad, you will have seen that most of the restaurants are family restaurants. Indonesian restaurants abroad are maybe 99% of them, there's only one unit opened by a family, and it is very conservative because they make very traditional food and in a traditional decor. today with our I would like to share with you what I think are our success factors. With our 6 restaurants, we are the first and only Indonesian fast food chain in the world. We have quite good scores, above 4 on 5 stars on all internet rating sites. And we serve 200,000 Indonesian meals each year to French customers. And that is very important because my target is really the local customer, not the Indonesian customer who is longing to find Indonesian food when he's traveling, but really the local market. And the main success factors are, first of all, that Jawa is deeply market-oriented because we apply local marketing to attract the local market. We developed a very strong visual identity, served in a casual and modern environment, in very central locations, sharing the contemporary prerequisite of eco-consciousness. And most importantly, I insist again on this, no fear of adapting to local taste. I insist on this point because it is what I see is it's the most difficult point, and it's the reason why most of the brands, Indonesian food brands who try to go to France, have a lot of difficulties to develop in Europe, because Indonesians are very conservative on their food, and I respect that totally. But if you want to touch more people in Europe, you need to adapt more the product, actually. Second point, success factor, it's that Jawa is very process driven. And if you implement a lot of process that guarantees you constant quality, price competitiveness, no dependence on Indonesian staff, because there aren't many Indonesian cooks or Indonesian people who speak French to serve our customers. It also means that you can serve quickly, affordable, and practical dishes. And last but not least, our work method is based on data analysis, proven processes, and digital supervision of all the operations. And this allows us to be agile on a fast-moving market. It's fast-moving. Today, the world is very fast-moving everywhere, but also for the restaurant businesses, and even more so, as you would have seen with the COVID crisis. You need to adapt very, very quickly. And all of this method allows us to be profitable and ready for a large-scale expansion in France, Europe, and America. But I do things step by step, and for now, I will develop France first. So this is the example of what I tried to do in France, but we have much to learn from other Asian countries who managed to spread their country's reputation abroad much better than Indonesia did until now. So we have the examples of Thailand, Korea, and Japan. And these examples are really, really precious because they really managed to glow in the eyes of internationals through food. If you talk to French people about Thai food, Korean food, and Japanese food, everybody knows that, at least in Paris, in the capital. And that is what we want to do with Indonesian cuisine. I have many other ideas of brands that I want to develop around Indonesian cuisine. For example, a concept of Balinese barbecue, a concept of fried snacks to be sold online, of Indonesian coffee shop, etc. But I will always use the same success factors for which the main point is that we are very adapted to the local market. That is all for the presentation, and I hope that you know a bit more now on Jawa. And if you have any questions, of course, I'm here to discuss all of this with you and to see what is more interesting to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation from Madam Dambron. It was such an extensive and insightful material that we have heard for the past half an hour. And now we have come to the question and answer session. But before we go into the Q&A session, I would like to ask Madam Dambron, would you like to answer it directly, or should I collect all the questions first, ma'am?
As you wish. It's we can do it directly if you want. Is it by chat or?
Some of the students may turn on their microphone and camera and ask it to you directly, ma'am.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for the confirmation. Okay, for the attendees, if you have something to be delivered, or maybe a perspective regarding the materials or a question for Madam Dambron, you may raise your hands and ask her through by voice, and please raise your hand in the participants box so that we may notice it. Okay, we have our first question from Ms. Anissa Antani Hanjani. For Ms. Anissa Antani Hanjani, you may turn on your microphone and convey your question.
Thank you, moderator. Hello, Mr. Dambron. It's so nice to meet you here. It's a very enlightening session for me, especially to know that there is an Indonesian who tried to introduce Indonesian food in a very unusual way. Maybe my question just a little bit similar to a question that I have in the first session. It's the culture and the business itself. Yeah, I guess you're right when you say that Indonesian food is very conservative because there is the value of sanctity itself in the food, and then there is a value of originality in the food itself. So that is why it is a little bit hard to adapt to the market, especially in Europe. My question is, how can you bridge the value of Indonesian food who has sanctity and then the originality between the market of Europe that needs you to be more innovative? Thank you.
It's a very difficult thing to do, actually. Since 10 years, I've constantly been trying to find the right balance, and it's still not stopped. We still try to push to maximize the authenticity of a dish while responding to all of the constraints that I've told you about. Affordability, the fact that people will find it pretty, will recognize the dish, will be attracted by the dish, etc. So there are many, many constraints. And it's actually a work of fine-tuning. You try something and then you change it a little bit by bit. For example, because of technical constraints, I couldn't put an egg on the nasi goreng, which is, fried egg is something completely iconic for the nasi goreng. And so now I found another way to make eggs. Of course, it's not just to make one egg. It's because we make a lot of volume. Every day we serve 600 people per day. So it needs to be quick, affordable, etc. So it's not easy to find the right things, but when you find the right supplier, the right cooking tool, the right technique, then you can go further to more authenticity and more protection of the sanctity of a dish, and more respect for the tradition. But it's not immediate. You have to work bit by bit on every dish. But indeed, I can see that Indonesians are very conservative, and for a long time, Indonesians that were in France, in Paris, didn't really understand what I do. Actually, today they do. They really understand, because even if for them, the taste in my dishes is not for their tongue, is not traditional enough, it's not made for lidah orang Indonesia, it's made for lidah Prancis. They understand that now that I have 6 restaurants, I can reach more people. So they accept more and more the idea. And to answer your question, it's really a lot of the details that you work over time and try to accumulate to improve every dish. My menu is quite short. We have maybe 15 dishes. So each dish must be developed for a long time. So there is no easy answer to your question. It's a lot of work through time, and maybe the one more thing that I could say is that in general for entrepreneurship, when you open your business, and it's totally adaptable for my case for opening a restaurant, you need to test the product. You don't know what the response of your customers will be before you try it. So you need to test it and to get the feedback. For example, the good feedback was about the rendang. The rendang dish, of course, for me, rendang is excellent. It's really, really good as it is presented in Indonesia, but it couldn't work this way for French people. It's not possible to sell rendang in volume if it is too spicy. That is quite easy to understand. But also, French people are used to have meats that are very tender. In their own culture, they eat raw meat, raw beef meat, for example. And all of the meats that we can find in France here are very tender. So we had to make the rendang very, very tender instead of meresep, instead of dry, and with more sauce, because French people, well, this might be a specificity in France of the French local taste, but they love the sauce. So we just put more coconut milk, more coconut milk, more coconut milk in the sauce. And also you can find some tricks. For example, for the people who want it more spicy, you can always put the option of offering a sambal on the side, so a spicy sauce on the side. And maybe later I will try to develop also a rendang that is completely authentic and very spicy as a tapas to eat a little bit at the beginning of a dinner. But all of these, yes, we need to develop them slowly, and we try. When we try to innovate, usually we try to do it in one restaurant, and if we see that it works well, we implement it in all of the others. So it's a work of fine-tuning here and there until you find the right product presented in the right way at the right price. And sometimes, of course, I also feel that maybe this dish, I find it too far from the original. Well, I will work on it, and maybe in a few months it will be closer to the original authentic Indonesian dish. But nothing is perfect and it's always evolving. You have to accept that it must evolve.
All the things that are different, of course, and the works that you've done is very interesting. And as an Indonesian itself, maybe I will go to your restaurant one day to try how is Indonesian cuisine taste in Paris. Thank you, and Mercy, of course.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Anissa, for the question. Next up, we have a question from Mr. Marcel from Indonesia. For Mr. Marcel, you may turn on your microphone and convey and ask your questions directly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marcelino. I want to ask that previously I know that in France, actually probably in Paris, that's Indonesian restaurant that's mixed with another Asian food. How that could be happen in Indonesian restaurant? That's basically a different recipe or different herbs rather than another Asian like Thailand or Vietnamese and Chinese sometimes that I know before, and that's make me interesting. Why France people will, be open for the restaurant to mix another Asian foods? And the second question is how the rice is originally made in France, because I know that the rice is so very different with nasi goreng in Indonesia, because it's sometimes like like it's not to be a very tender the rice, but it's just a little bit to be crisp or anything else that's we can say in Indonesia keras. There's a little bit keras and separate its rice. So that's unique of nasi goreng itself from Indonesia. How the originally to get in France about it. Thank you.
Okay. So to answer your first question, if I understand well, please correct me if I'm wrong. The first question is, how does it work among French customers to propose different Asian specialties in one restaurant, right?
Yes, that's right.
So the thing is, if you make a restaurant with only a very unknown specialty, you will attract very little people. If some French people know a little bit of Vietnamese food, a little bit of Thai food, a little bit of Chinese food, a little bit of Indonesian food, in any case, they don't know the difference actually. For them, it's just Asian food. So it doesn't make a difference for them. So if you, as a restaurant, if you suggest all of these different cuisines in one restaurant, it actually improves it increases your chances of getting more customers. So that is one part of the answer. But the second part of the answer is there are some exceptions. For example, in Paris, the food level is very, very high. There's a big hype around the foodie world on Instagram and in the young generation, always going out to eat, always ordering on Deliveroo, getting delivered. And for them, I see the new trend that you need to be a specialist. If you mix everything, you're not credible. Because of course, you cannot be good for every cuisine at the same time. So both are true. It's just that I would say that in most parts of France, people don't know Asian food good enough so that the restaurants need to mix the specialties. But in big cities, like in Paris, people know more about international culture. And for them, it is important to have the most authentic, unique specialty. For example, some years ago, Chinese cuisine in France was, we call it Chinese restaurants. But actually, in these restaurants, you had specialties from all over Asia. And these restaurants, since maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, have less and less success. Because in Paris now, people know that, well, you cannot mix everything. If you want Korean food, you go to a Korean restaurant. If you want Vietnamese food, you go to a Vietnamese restaurant. You cannot just mix everything in a batch that you call Chinese food. And if you want Chinese food, you Parisians don't even go to a Chinese restaurant. They go to a Chinese dumpling restaurant, or to a Sichuanese restaurant, regional restaurants of China. So both worlds still exist. So this was to answer your first question. And your second question is the typical remark of an Indonesian conservative. It's on these details. Of course, traditionally in Indonesia, to make nasi goreng, you use the rice that is left over from the day before. So it is a bit more dry, and it's actually nice when it's drier. But for example, technically, I cannot do that in my restaurants. We have like huge rice cookers, and we serve 100 to 150 people a day in one restaurant, in each restaurant. And so you cannot just keep the rice from the day before. But is that a problem for the French people? Actually, what you need to understand is that they don't have the same preconception of rice. If probably most can appreciate rice that is a little bit al dente, a little bit a little bit dry, a little bit hard. But some people will just think that you didn't cook the rice enough. So you just have to test and to try to make a mix of all of that, and also just improve your recipe. My recipe, if it's too basah, too wet, I will try to improve it over time. But also, one last point, please understand that for you as an Indonesian, your basic food is rice, right? So you will be extremely meticulous, and you will expect much more from the rice than a French person whose basic food is bread. If you ate rice all your life, you know when it's perfect or when it's not. If you eat bread all your life, you will know when the bread is not perfect, but you will not expect the rice to be perfect. Voilà.
All right, that's really interesting. That's differences, and also the similarities with the bread is also awesome for me. I would like to try someday in Paris and try to there someday.
Pleasure.
Thank you for the answer.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Marcel, for the question. We have only been hearing 2 questions, and things have been so much more interesting. I myself actually have a question I would like to ask you, madam, but I'll wait till the end and hear what our participants have to say in this session. The third question we have received in the chat box, I would like to read it to you, ma'am. The question comes from Ms. Shamira from Universitas Pelita Harapan. She said she cannot turn on her camera because she is attending a class right now, but she would like to ask you 2 questions in particular. The first question is, she would like to know how you overcome the problem in finding resources in France, because as we know, trademark dishes such as rendang requires a lot of spices, and in some occasions, those spices can only be found generally in Indonesia and traditional markets as such. And the second question is, how do you what strategy do you use in this pandemic to survive in the context of business and restaurants? That's the questions from Ms. Shamira, Madam Dambron.
All right. So for the first questions, how to find the spices. As I said before, I tried to make recipes with only the spices that I could already find, because it is very, very complicated to get the spices from Indonesia, the specific ones, and bring them to France. It's administratively very complicated. It's a long process. It's expensive, and you need to advance a lot of money, actually, because if you send a container, you need to fill it and you need to buy everything. Anyway, it's very complicated. So that's not what I did. I used the markets that were already existing in France. Even if you don't have many Indonesian suppliers here, you have other Asian suppliers, and they also have all of these spices, actually. We have a very well-known Asian supermarket in Paris, and they sell everything, products from Thailand, Vietnam, China, and we have another kind of supermarket, and it's actually a whole district where you have all the Indian spices. So if I make a mix of the Indian spices, Thai spices, Chinese spices, I could find everything to make the rendang. There are just some exceptions with very specifically Indonesian spices. When it's, for example, ginger, star anise, and a lot of other general spices that you can find in all of Asia, that is not a problem. But for example, if you want to find kecap manis or keluak nut to make rawon, these are typically Indonesian products. Well, you have to find Indonesian suppliers, and I found some in Europe, in Germany, or in the Netherlands, because there is a big Indonesian community there. So I tried to find the closest Indonesian supplier possible to give me the Indonesian specific products. Today we have, now with 6 restaurants, we have big volumes, and it's starting to become possible to import ourselves. But again, the pandemic doesn't make things easy for import-export, and we will see how it goes. And this brings us to your second question, the pandemic and our survival. I will not lie. Of course, there is a part of our survival that is due to the fact that we are very agile and very adaptable, and we could easily switch from one sales channel to the other. So, of course, before COVID, 45 to 50% of our revenues came from people eating directly on site. During the pandemic, it was 0. But what we did was we were successful to switch these revenues on the delivery segment, because people would order more. And it's not that easy. It's not just you decide and you switch. You need to be very good on the delivery market. And for that, you work with, in France, you work with Deliveroo, Uber Eats. These big actors, they put in place algorithms that decide which parameters. They have like hundreds of parameters that will make you go up in the ranking, and it will make you appear in the first page or in the 10th page of a customer when they open the internet page. So you need to fine-tune all these parameters of the algorithm to become good on this market. So we knew how to switch from to make the jump between one market and the other. So the market from eating on site to the delivery market. So that is our merit. But also, where I will not lie is that we've had the help of the government that was enormous to help us survive. Not the first months. The first months were very, very difficult for us. We made huge losses, financial losses, that we will still have to pay back for the next 5 years, probably, at least. But we were still helped by the government financially to help pay all the salaries. So our employees could still get their salaries almost completely, almost 100%. We also topped what was missing. And we had also some financial help to pay all of the fixed costs. Because actually the restaurant business in France, in Europe, it's a lot of fixed costs. You pay the rent, and it's not just the rent, it's a lot of other things that actually make the most expensive, that are the main costs in this business. It's not just food that you pay. Food is only 25 to 30% of what you have to pay. And the fixed costs are huge. And the French government did help us a lot and help us survive. We will see if we survive completely, but I hope so. And I think it's the attitude that will help us also. Staying positive will help us go forward and see this crisis as an opportunity as well. Because maybe the weakest on the market will not survive, and maybe for us it will also mean opportunities, business opportunities, and it also taught us a lot. Like, for example, for the delivery market, we were not champions before. We were not that good, and the pandemic forced us to become good on this market. And today, the restaurants in France are completely open again. People can sit in, but we kept our customers from the delivery market. That we kept all the market shares on the delivery market that we had during the pandemic. So we also learned a lot from this crisis.
Okay, thank you for the answer, ma'am. So meticulous planning and extensive strategy formulation plays a big key in trying to sustain the business throughout the pandemic. And I also agree with you that the mindset is actually the key to everything. And hopefully, after all the pandemic has gotten us through all the business and all the shortcomings, we will come out of this stronger and better than ever, including in the restaurant sectors and the economy and business. Okay, next up, we have a question from our audience here for Ms. Areta. Ms. Areta, you may turn on your microphone and ask your question directly.
Mbak Dila, lagi open mic. I'm sorry, I'm terribly sorry for that. Then continuing to the question, a very good. In here is almost evening, but still afternoon. I think we can settle it as afternoon. To very welcome you to our session. And I am a person who have quite an interest in gastronomy things. So this is such a pleasure for me, such an opportunity for me to hear from you, to present the culture and you with Java Restaurants as a representation of Indonesia's cuisine in France itself. So actually, I want to ask this question. I hope that this is quite a light question for you and our participants. I want to ask about the culture itself, the culture of each dish in France and Indonesia. As I've noticed from your answers before and your presentation, that you are using your creativity on adapting Indonesia's cuisine into France taste. So I would like to ask about how would you describe a difference and similarity? Actually, I have gotten quite a bit visualization from your answers before, but maybe in a general terms, I would like to ask about the difference and similarity between Indonesia's and France's use of ingredients and cooking technique overall. And as we know from your enlightenment that by formulating a new dish will take such a long time, such a difficulty, such an effort. So I would like to ask, how would this cooking technique and use of ingredients, both similarity and differences between France and Indonesia would contribute to your formulation onto a dish? And I would like to ask about, in terms of this formulation of dish, actually, I have quite a different perspective from the other participants, which the others really respect the authenticity and the originality, which is very, very great of it. But I would like to ask about how would the effectiveness of making a fusion dish in the goal of gastrodiplomacy, but as a representation of Indonesia or in the cooperation between France and Indonesia, by using this fusion dish and the contribution of the culture, the background of culture itself between Indonesia and France in terms of cooking technique and ingredients. Secondly, I'm terribly sorry for these questions, but I have a second question also, which is about dessert. Actually, I have quite a sweet tooth, so I would like to ask, since I know that France has quite a culture in terms of dessert and pastry there, so I would like to ask about how would you incorporate Indonesia's taste or make Indonesia's dessert into a taste, adapting into French, adapting into French people local taste, or not to mention from the ingredients, but still preserving the originality and authenticity and the culture of the dish, which originates from Indonesia. How would you make, as I've noticed from the menu on your restaurants also, that you have several desserts contributing Indonesia's ingredients and Indonesia's dish itself. So I would like to ask about how did you formulate the dish, or have you gotten maybe a vision for another making in another dessert or pastry using Indonesia's ingredients, Indonesia's culture, and so on? Maybe that's the two of my question. Thank you very much.
All right. Those wasn't easy to understand, but I think the questions are very interesting. The first question, correct me when I'm wrong understanding your questions, right? So you would like to know what are the similarities and differences of the use of ingredients in the French cuisine and Indonesian cuisine. The first ideas that popped up in my mind are that, first, the biggest similarity is that French people and Indonesian people have an extreme love for their food. It is extremely. It's a huge part of the culture. There are countries that do not give so much importance to food, but in France and Indonesia, so I'm half French, half Indonesian, and it's all about food. Like, all my life is about food. Really, from breakfast to evening, it's only about food, and you cannot. And when I was talking to you about conservatism for Indonesians, it's the same for French people. They are very, very conservative. If you, for example, in Jakarta, when I go there and I go to a bakery and they say, this is French bread, I think, no, this is not French bread. It's not like that. This is not a croissant. But yeah, so this is, I think, the biggest similarity. It's how conservative French people and Indonesian people are about their food, because it is impregnated in culture, and it comes from it's been existing for a long time. It comes from a specific place. It's made a specific way, and it's perfect this way. I think that's why it is so important. So France and Indonesia are really countries where food plays a major role in the culture, in the everyday life. That is the biggest similarity. But in terms of cooking techniques and ingredients, it's absolutely different. That was something that was difficult for me to understand in the beginning. For example, for French people, Indonesian, Asian food or Indonesian food could appear like just a big mix, a mash of spices. You put everything in and you cook everything and you overcook everything. So for French people, Asian food can be considered as overcooked. Whereas my understanding of Indonesian food, it's that it's not just cooking techniques, it's the right balance of spices. And that actually in other Asian cuisines, it's the most difficult thing to manage. It's the right balance of each spice. And it's also cultural, because, for example, in Indonesia, the weather is 30 degrees. So if you don't want to have hygiene problems, you have to cook things very, very much. And you have to put a lot of spices, and the chili will be used as a preservative. In France, you don't need that because it's a country where most of the year it's colder. And in France, you will eat the meat almost raw or completely raw. You cannot cook the meats that much. Otherwise, it's a synonym of bad quality. And also a big difference is, for Indonesian dishes, the harmony comes from the mix of the ingredients, spices, meat, everything. In France, there is this respect for the product. Well, they call it the respect for the product, which is true. They respect the product. You will have the meat. You will have the lauk, the sauce, for example, on the side, and you will have the sauce. And you can completely differentiate in your mouth. You can differentiate each piece, each taste. And if you present them with an Indonesian curry, gulai atau rendang, they will find it probably like we're not respecting the product. I mean, people who really understand will understand the harmony, but the first reflex would be to think that, whoa, but you cook this meat for 4 hours. How is that respecting the product? So there are big differences in the techniques in how to use the ingredients. So that's to answer your first question. The second question is how I would invent a fusion dish between French and Indonesian cuisine, right? That is a difficult question. That is difficult because I am not a big fan of fusion food. I think it's most of the time it's not on point. It's possible, but it's really rare. I find it rare in restaurants to find fusion food that is really precise. I love precision in food. When I go to any kind of restaurant that I try to find precision. So if you mix a little bit of this, a little bit of that, usually it's not that great. But some people manage to do it very well. When you know everything well about the French cuisine and Indonesian cuisine, maybe you can mix both well. I haven't tried to do this much with salty food, with salty dishes. But I had an idea that we discussed with, you know, the well-known chef William Monceau, with whom we did a partnership. And one of the ideas that came up to my mind was, for example, to make a French burger, which is, in any case, it's American at the beginning, but or German. It's not even French, but now it has it's been introduced in the French food culture so much. The new generation loves burgers so much that we can also have French burgers. So French burger with a rendang meat, piece of meat with rendang spices. That's an idea, but I haven't tried it. So I cannot tell you if it can work or not. I think it can work. You can also make it in a vegetarian version with tempeh or with nangka, jackfruit. I try to develop more and more vegan options in my restaurants, and with jackfruit and tempeh, it's very interesting. So I think that is completely possible, but I haven't tried it yet because it's a completely different type of product that we cannot make at the moment. But maybe one day we will try. And the last question, very interesting. I haven't talked about the desserts, and that is one of the most tricky things. How to adapt it to the French taste, how to adapt Indonesian desserts to the French taste. Honestly, that is hardcore difficult. Very, very difficult. First of all, Indonesian desserts seem as weird for French people. And the sweet part of the menu of French people's dinner or lunch, they are the most conservative for the sweet part, for the dessert. So this is where you cannot make them change. There are some things that will never work. Indonesians here in France ask me, "Oh, when are you going to make esteller?" And I'm like, "Oh la la, I don't think that esteller can work here. It's not possible. It's too weird. A lot of colors and different textures. That is what Indonesians find interesting. All the textures and the colors. For the French people, that is just weird and maybe disgusting. So, well, not everything can work. But I did try some things. I tried things like kolak pisang, which is a soup of bananas in coconut milk. And that worked okay. I also adapted jus alpukat. But at the beginning, my family recipe from my Indonesian grandmother, my mother, was to mix some avocado with coffee and just to mix it with the fork. So you had some pieces. And I find it amazing. But when I first presented that to French people, first of all, they don't know avocado as a dessert. For them, it's salty food. They can, okay, guacamole is okay, but not as dessert. Second of all, it's not sweet enough if you just put coffee. So what I did was I put more chocolate, more sugar, actually. I put concentrated milk. And I mix everything very, very well with a mixer, which makes it look a little bit like a yogurt. Actually, in France, we have this dessert called danette, which is a sort of chocolate mousse. And my dessert was much better sold in my restaurants when I changed the format. But it was still something that is a little bit weird. So some people were interested to taste something weird in an exotic restaurant. but most people will still not take that, will still not buy. And so if we analyzed, we did analyze all the statistics of what we sold, we are not good at selling desserts. So we're actually in the process of changing completely our dessert menu. And we want to make more, that is the only part of the menu that for now, I think I'm going towards more fusion. Because I've really tried and it didn't work out. So we need to adapt. We need to find concepts that French people know. For example, martabak manis, I'm sure that it can work because they know French pancakes, well, French or American pancakes. It's something that they can visualize. So that is one thing. And also French people expect some classics when they, even if they go to an Asian restaurant, they want to end their meal with something with chocolate or ice cream or cheesecake or fruits. And so now we will try to develop a new dessert menu to answer better their expectations, but still, if possible, with an Indonesian twist. So it's just an Indonesian twist with an ingredient that you can bring. For example, pandan kuli that you can put on top of the chocolate cake. Yes, this kind of tricks that you have to find to make it work. Voila, I think I've answered all of your questions.
Thank you very much for the answers. Yeah, I am terribly agree about maybe the use of ingredients is also kind of difficult and adapting to the local taste there, as we have a very different culture of how we view of food itself from Indonesia and France. Maybe like actually it's just an idea popping in my mind, but maybe I could give a little idea, which is maybe the similarity between France and Indonesia is which we also have a traditional dish similar to crepes, so maybe that will be good, I think. So maybe that's all for me. Thank you very much for your answer, and I'm really looking forward if I got the chance to go to your restaurants if I go to France. So thank you very much for being here and for presenting to us. Thank you very much.
I would like to add one thing. One other parameter that is not just based on taste, but also technical constraints. For example, there are desserts that I would like to make and to test. Maybe they could work, like, for example, kue lapis. The problem is many of these desserts require a lot of work. Or, for example, there's one dessert that is amazing that works really well here. It's dadar gulung.
Dadar gulung, yes.
The green crepes, in which you have coconut, grated coconut, and palm sugar. These work really well with French people. But the problem is it requires a lot of time of preparation. And here, the staff, like the people working here, it costs a lot of money. It's not the same price as in Indonesia, where you can make maybe more complex things and that require hours and hours of work. But here, if you do that, if you make dadar gulung, we have to sell it at a very high price. At least for now, I haven't found the right tools to make it efficient. So I have to sell it quite expensive. And if it's expensive, you will not sell a lot of them. So there are other constraints than just the perception of the product and the taste.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Arita, for the question, and thank you to Madam Dambron for the amazing answers. We move on to another question from our participants here attending in Zoom. So, Ms. Jessica Natania, you may turn on your microphone and ask your question directly.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Mademoiselle. First of all, thank you for your interesting presentation. Well, I'd like to ask about your plan for your restaurant. Like, do you have any plan to make your restaurant menu more diverse by adding more meals, especially from the ethnic ones in Eastern Indonesia? Thank you.
Do you have examples of what you call Eastern Indonesia?
The most famous one is ayam woku, I suppose, and also there's a famous one called papeda.
The second one I didn't hear.
Papeda.
I don't know that. Apaan itu?
It's like a glutinous porridge. I suppose it's from Papua. It's famous there.
Is it sweet or salty?
I think it's supposed to be salty, and you eat it with like yellow soup. Yellow salty pepper soup.
Just with your answer, I can say that it will be very difficult. This thing between salty and sweet, for Asian food, I think it's difficult for them, for French people. They like sweet and salty, but in specific dishes that they already know. For example, something that is very weird for French people, if you make martabak manis and you put cheese on it, like chocolate and cheese, for Indonesians, it's normal. For French people, it's so weird. So this sort of Papua bubur, I don't think it can work. But for the example of ayam woku, it is a dish from Manado, right? Yeah, all of the woku dishes, I think it can work. It has a lot of potential. But the problem about Manadonese food is that it's too spicy. I mean, you can make the version with less spices, and I think it has potential, and I think it's something that I will continue to develop. And also, I have already tried these a lot of specialties from around the world, from around Indonesia, sorry, because for a few years, what I did was try a new dish every month. So I have the fixed menu, and I always have one special temporary dish every month to try different things. And so it is completely possible to try ayam woku. At one point I had ikan rica-rica. What did I have? I tried many things from around Indonesia. Semur daging, soto Makassar. I tried many things. But I tried to keep the same base of dishes in the menu. For example, if you go to McDonald's, you expect to have all your classics. You want the same base. And then you have the temporary specialties that they, for example, this month, they make a special, I don't know, Korean fried chicken burger. But that will change every month, every few months. So that is something that we want to do, be able to always make our customers discover new things, because our customer base is comes very often. Once they come again. So it is interesting to be able to make them discover more things and more authentic things as well, because once they have been introduced with a large public product, like all the dishes that we already propose, that we already offer, I think it's possible to make them go and discover, when they trust us already, you can make them discover more specific products. So I think it's something that we want to develop. But to tell you the truth, when I started having, I think 3 or 4 restaurants, it became more and more difficult to make new products have the same quality all the time everywhere. I think until I had 3 restaurants, we did this all the time. Every month, a new specialty, a new dish. And then it was too difficult, because when I tried to make a soto, the first week, the quality was fine. Second week, you go to one restaurant to another restaurant, it's completely different. And because everyone wants to do it their way, also because my staff is not Indonesian, and because the process is was not well developed enough. So I do have the intention of developing more regional products, but it requires actually a lot of work in terms of process to be able to do it on a large scale for at least 6 restaurants, and with to maintain the same quality everywhere. Well, I don't know if it answered your question correctly.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question, Ms. Jessica, and for the answer again, Madam Dambron. Next, we have a question from Ms. Wahyu Ramadinda. For Ms. Wahyu Ramadinda, you may turn on your microphone.
Thank you for the opportunity for Mr. Marcel.
I'm sorry, Ms.
We
Dinda.
cannot hear you.
We cannot hear you.
Is it clear?
Yes, you're audible. For
Okay.
Madam Dambron, can you hear Ms. Dinda?
Yes.
May
Okay.
proceed, please.
Thank you for moderator, Mr. Marcel, bonjour, Madam Dambron, and also all the participants. My name is Wahyu Rahmadinda from International Relations Diponegoro University. First of all, I would like to ask about your opinion. How big are the changes for Indonesian to introduce our food or expand Indonesian food, or maybe, as we can say, to develop our gastrodiplomacy to another countries in Europe? Maybe we can say like in Spain, Germany, or another country in Europe. Is it like in France or about anything else? I think that's all from me. Thank you, Madam Dambron.
So if I understand well, the question is how to expand Indonesian culture better abroad, internationally, right? Actually, I think we can see like in details different arguments, but I have one main argument, and it's what I tried to make in my presentation. It's marketing, 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 local marketing. I think that is the point where Indonesians are the least good or adapted in Europe, at least. I don't know the market in the whole world, but for the European market, the marketing is not well adapted. And that is the main point. And that's why, and for example, Thailand and even Malaysia, they're much better in communicating for their tourism, from their tourism department to food, to anything. It's just that they know how to sell themselves better. And Indonesia needs to learn to sell themselves better with the thinking that in front of you, you have someone that will have different eyes. Until now, my impression is that Indonesians think for themselves, for Europeans. You need to have the eyes of a European. And maybe that's the advantage that I have to be bicultural. It's that I can see both parts from the inside. And when you know how another culture thinks, it's much easier to know how to reach to them. And I think that's one of the points that make Indonesia, it makes it difficult for them to reach Europeans. It's because they don't have the right communication language. They don't have the right marketing tools. It's not adapted enough. When you try to be, for example, too conservative, I only know the example for food, but for food, if you are too conservative, you will not reach a big public. There are, for example, in Paris, I have a friend who has a traditional Indonesian food restaurant. It's great, and I think we need those as well. We really need the ones who present authentic traditional culture, of course. But that's not how you will easily expand, because if you want to go to a restaurant that has a lot of traditional decoration with all the signs that you are going in a very, very exotic place, and it's also very authentic in the dishes, and it's also very expensive. Everything comes together. Well, as a customer, as a French customer, you will go there and have a lot of pleasure, but you will only go once or twice a year. If you adapt a product for the needs of the everyday life, like what I do, you will come every week to my restaurant. So I think there is this psychological step that Indonesians need to do, is to accept the adaptation. And you cannot convey 100% of the depth of the Indonesian culture, or this island's culture, or this city culture from Indonesia. You cannot. I think this is not the point. Today, we are going from the fact that people don't know the country Indonesia. So you need to speak for a broader public. You need to generalize, you need to find simpler concepts. You cannot be that precise. For example, in a menu, you cannot put 5 different types of soto, because it makes no sense for French people. You only need to choose one and say this is soto and it's an iconic Indonesian dish. Even if in reality, in Indonesia, you have the soto Coto Makassar, you have soto Javanese soto from here, from there, and they're all a little bit different. But that's not how I think you should present it. And as long as you still have this psychological gap, conservative mindset, I think it will be difficult to reach a larger public. So that is my opinion. So adaptation, conservatism, and second of all, also just communication, better communicate. What I've seen, I've been in contact with the embassy for more than 12 years now, to see everything that they do. They're getting better and better, but it's new. I mean, it hasn't been a long time since they're trying to become hype. Before, when they organized events, it was in places where no Parisians, people from Paris, nobody goes. So it's only Indonesians in Paris who go to these events, or their French boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. That is not how you reach more people. If you want to reach more, for example, French people, you need to go in a place where Parisians find it hype. You just need to be hype. So that is one of the things that we try to do. Doesn't mean we are successful in everything, but that is how I think you can reach more people. It's offering something that looks hype to them with your culture. And I think it's, even if you transform a little bit the product, I think the result is good. My customers, I know that many of them went to Indonesia for their holidays instead of going to Thailand. The reflex would be to go to Thailand because everybody knows there are nice beaches there, and the food is good because everybody knows Thai food in France, in Paris. But Indonesian food, they don't know. But if they come and they think it's good and they think it's cool, they will look for the next holidays. They will think, oh, well, maybe Indonesia, let's check it out. And so to expand better, I think you need better communication, better marketing that is really adapted to the state of mind where your public is. Because I hope that maybe in a few years, when Indonesia and Indonesian food will be better known in France, I will probably be able to communicate to my customers that this dish comes from Sumatra, this dish comes from Java, this dish comes from Bali. And maybe one day they will know the difference. But today, I'm just trying to make them discover the name of the country. Because sometimes I have customers, they're queuing to order. They call their colleagues, hey, I'm in this Thai restaurant. And I'm like, no, this is not a Thai restaurant. This is an Indonesian restaurant. So step by step, you need to adapt to where your public stands.
Thank you for the answer, Madam Dambron.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dinda, for the question, and Madam Dambron for another splendid answer. We have another question. We still have 30 minutes in our time in this afternoon, pardon me. We have a question from Ms. Titis Mega. So for Ms. Titis Mega, you may turn on your microphone and ask your question directly.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Stephanie. This is Mega from the International Relations of Diponegoro University. I would like to ask you about 3 questions. Please answer it based on your opinion. The first is, may I know if there is any French or European restaurants that serves Indonesian cuisine besides Jawa? And the second, if there were any, what would you think about it? And
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
one,
the first question.
Okay, let me repeat it again, miss. The first question is, may I know if there is any European or French restaurant that serves Indonesian cuisines besides Jawa? And the second, if there were any, what would you think about it? And the third, do you think that Indonesian cuisine should be served by Indonesian people, or anybody have the same chance to do it? Thank you, miss.
Okay. So, are any European or French restaurants serving Indonesian food? Yes and no. For example, nasi goreng is a dish that is starting to make its way in the broad public. For example, there is this, there are already cooked dishes that are sold in supermarkets. And now, since maybe 2-3 years, you can find some fried rice called nasi goreng. So it's starting to come. French suppliers and restaurants may prepare what they call Indonesian food. But what I've tried in supermarkets, when they call it nasi goreng, it's actually absolutely not nasi goreng. There's also a French, a great fast food chain, very high level, excellent quality food that is very well known in Paris, called Cogent. They make they introduce more and more Indonesian dishes. But to be honest, it really doesn't taste like Indonesian food, like Indonesian dishes. Their nasi goreng or their, what did they try to make recently? Also satay, peanut sauce. It's really too far. I mean, who am I to judge if it's too far or close enough from the original? Because I also adapt. But honestly, this time they just use the name. And they put some rice and they change everything else. So it's starting to make its way. But I don't know any sit-in restaurants where they make Indonesian food. Or maybe in fusion restaurant food. Yeah, they can make Indonesian food. Yeah, so it's... It depends. It depends if you consider that it is Indonesian food or not, or if it's just the name. But already, I think it's a positive thing. Even when I try and I'm like, this is not a nasi goreng, this is not a satay. I think it's still positive because it's still advertisement for Indonesian food. And if you see every day when you go to the supermarket and you see, for example, chicken tikka masala, well, every day you will understand that this Indian dish, that tikka masala is an Indian dish, even if it's not authentic. So one day, after seeing it every day, you will understand that nasi goreng is a fried rice coming from Indonesia. So I think it's still advertisement, even if the conservative part of myself finds it difficult. And for the second question, should it be served by Indonesian people? Of course, I would love to have Indonesian pelayan, Indonesian servers, because they would know how to sell better my products. But the problem is I need to adapt to my customers, and my customers, they speak French. And Indonesian people who come to France, they learn this very difficult language called French, and they usually are beginners, and most of them are students, and they can only work like 2 or 3 days a week, and I am open like 5 to 7 days a week, lunch and dinner, and so I don't have the right people, the right Indonesian people that are competent for the language and also available when I need. So that's why I think that ideally, yes, it would be very nice if Indonesian staff could be there. I could be in these restaurants, in my restaurants. But the reality is that it's not possible to have 100% of Indonesian people. And so I developed all my processes also according to this constraint. That's also why it's even more important for me to develop processes that make the quality constant, because my staff is completely international, going from French people to Bangladeshi to Sri Lankan to foreign students from elsewhere. So nobody really knows Indonesian food before coming to our place. And the most important thing is to read our process and to apply it so that the quality in each dish is always the same. Or at least that's what we try to do. To not be dependent on Indonesian staff. Even if, of course, ideally it would be great, because Indonesians love their food and love their culture, and they would share much more of this love with our French customers. But even with my French staff and international staff, I try to convey this welcoming, the value of welcoming the customers like we do in Indonesia. It's not the same level as there, of course, but if you compare to other restaurants in Paris where the service is not very nice, I think we are up to the challenge.
So thank you so much, Ms. Stephanie, for the answer. That is enough for me. It is already answered all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Desvega, for the question, and Madam Dambron for another splendid, amazing answer. We actually still have quite of time left, so maybe now I get the chance to actually ask my question to you, Madam Dambron. This is actually a corresponding question regarding the topic that we are discussing today, regarding gastrodiplomacy. I myself is an international relations student, currently in year 3 of my education here in Diponegoro University. And we, as international relations students, come into contact with the term gastrodiplomacy almost quite extensively. And by not only enjoying the crisp taste of Indonesian culinary, the international community also comes into contact with the form of Indonesian culture, as you said in your presentation and in your answers to several questions back. My question is this, madam. How do you feel the Indonesian culture and ambience is being felt in France, especially within the French population? Because as you said before, you had to make several modifications towards the dish, even though you were facing several backlash from Indonesian conservatists regarding our food and our spices in our dishes. I would like to ask that question. And my second question is regarding the up-and-coming installment in the city of Bordeaux. When will you be opening this brand new restaurant, and will there be a special new dish you will release along with the opening of the new restaurant building in Bordeaux? Those are my questions, madam. Thank you.
Marcelino, I'm sorry, I didn't get the first question about gastrodiplomacy. Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
repeat again the first question, please?
Oh yeah. How do you feel the Indonesian culture and ambience are being felt in France, especially within the French population, ma'am?
Okay. So how Indonesian culture is felt for the ones who already know about Indonesian culture and the ones who don't know? Everyone?
Especially for the ones who haven't heard about Indonesia before.
Okay, so the first impression. Okay. I think in general, I'll start with this. People who come across Indonesian culture when they're in Indonesia, they fall in love with Indonesia for sure. Most of the people I know who have traveled or lived in different countries and have been to Indonesia, in general, Indonesia is their favorite. There's really this very, very strong emotional response actually from European people, well, French people who go to Indonesia. But for those who discover it in France, for example, let me think, because for my customers, they discover Indonesia through the eyes of Jawa, which is a very modern interpretation of Indonesian culture. And I hope that they find it hype and interesting and very on point, with balanced meal, very good, very gourmet dishes as well, extremely interesting tastes. So of course, if I can serve 600 French people per day Indonesian food, I think there is a real interest. But for those who discover Indonesia maybe through other means, for example, sorry, my cat is here. For example, if they French people discover Indonesia through a traditional restaurant, I think they probably find it extremely exotic and very nice, like in when they go to Indonesia. I think there is a very, very good first impression for French people who discover Indonesia. Maybe because they feel the true culture, deep culture that they feel behind each detail. Also because Indonesians are extremely nice, very, very gentle and heartwarm people. And that is not very easy in France. For example, in restaurants, in Paris, for example, people are not very, very nice and not very welcoming. So they probably have a very, very good first impression of Indonesia when they go to an Indonesian restaurant. That's what I would say for the first impression. Could they have a bad impression? Well, sometimes I do have the criticism of some people who have been to Indonesia or not. It's very rare, but I still have it sometimes that they find it not spicy enough, or not, that there are not enough spices. You have all the tastes in the world, so you cannot please everyone, and some people are not pleased because they want more spices, more authenticity, even French people, which I totally understand. But if I want to touch like 95% of the people, I have to deceive, I have to disappoint 5% of them. It is not possible to please 100% of all the people. It's just not possible. So I think most of the people can be completely seduced by Indonesian culture. And that's why what we all try to do, traditional restaurants or modern restaurants, we all try to do this. I think there is I haven't talked about this before, but there is a real compatibility of the taste of Indonesian food with French people. French people, for example, love in dishes, not in desserts, in dishes, they love sweet and salty food. Real compatibility. I don't know if it will be the same in other in European countries for this dish in particular, but in France, the satay sauce is our number one. It's our bestseller, actually. So there is a deep compatibility with the French. And for your second question, we are opening Bordeaux beginning of December. Do we prepare a special dish there? We really try to do the same process for all the restaurants. It will be the same for Paris and Bordeaux, but actually there we will have some, of course, when we open a new restaurant, there are always some innovations. We try to do it better than before, and there will be some new machines that will allow us to make more things, like more deep fried food, like pangsit goreng, for example. And so we will try to make more deep fried dishes. Yes, that's one of the specialties. We've tried in two of our restaurants. We are trying the pangsit at the moment in Paris, but it's just a test. And in Bordeaux, we will have different taste of pangsit. Voilà.
Thank you very much, Madame Dambron. Actually, I also have a dream of my own to open an international restaurant like yourself. And I was also thinking of making one in Paris, but maybe it will happen in like 30 or 40 years from now. So all the things you have taught us, all the things you have conveyed to us in this session this afternoon will hopefully be very beneficial for each and every one of us attending here, because it certainly is very beneficial for me. Thank you, Madam, for your answer.
Marcelino, if I may, a lot of people tell me I want to open my own restaurants. Most of the Indonesians that I meet want to open an Indonesian restaurant because they love their food and their country, and they want to make an advertisement of it. And they're also passionate just of the food and of cooking. So I understand that, but I always give them this suggestion to really study this way of life before, because it's very difficult work. Actually, having a restaurant here is extremely difficult. To open your own company is difficult, but it's in a very difficult sector because it's extremely competitive. People go to restaurants all the time in France, but the level of expectation is extremely high. And you need to work long hours, and it's really not an easy job. And the way I try to make it maybe more realistic is I try to make something that I could duplicate, that I could deploy in a larger scale, a chain of the same concept, which makes it stronger together and makes you also be able to be stronger on the market and have a better negotiation power with the suppliers, and that helps you become competitive. But it's not easy to even just have one restaurant. I mean, I of course, it is great, and if you want to do it and you're passionate about it, please do. But you have to be ready for it in your life. Voilà, that's my last.
Merci beaucoup, Madam, for the suggestions. I will definitely keep that in mind if the time comes for me to open my own in decades from now. Thank you very much, Madam. Actually, we are nearing the end of our session this afternoon. And maybe for Madam Dambron, you would like to give your closing remarks for this evening session?
I didn't prepare any, but maybe to continue to share my dream. Today, I am really focusing on developing Jawa in France, and then I hope internationally in other European countries. I'm actually looking for funding. I'm looking for 2 million euros funding to help me develop quickly. And I also, so this is the formula. Jawa is the concept, the formula that I want to develop right now. But as I mentioned before, I have other dreams to promote Indonesia through other food concepts. And that the other concepts would be very interesting because they would complement Jawa. For example, the Balinese barbecue, it would offer a deeper discovery of Indonesian cuisine and culture. For example, for the other concept of deep fried snacks to be sold online, it would complement the delivery market. And it's also very trendy at the moment on the delivery market to have fried products. For example, in France and in other countries in America and in other countries, the big trend is to make fried chicken, for example. Now you have American fried chicken, you have Korean fried chicken, you have Japanese fried chicken. So I would like to implement the Indonesian fried chicken, ayam goreng. And finally, also Indonesia is also a lot of, I would like to sell more of the lifestyle around Indonesian landscapes. And there are many locations near the beaches in France where I would like to implement an Indonesian coffee shop, because there are great coffees in Indonesia. But for now, it's not easy to distribute them in France. So I hope in a few years it will be possible to promote Indonesian coffee in a nice Indonesian coffee shop. So that is just to end on a dreaming note with you, if you want to continue dreaming with me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Dambron. We certainly hope that your aspirations to open an Indonesian style coffee shop would certainly happen in the near future, because we would be very, very happy to have our Indonesian culture be spread around Europe, starting in France. Thank you very much, Ms. Dambron. And ladies and gentlemen attending in this afternoon session of IRUD summer course, this is the end of today's session. Maybe before we close our afternoon session, we would like to take a photo session, documentation with all of the attendees present here. So please, everyone attending, you could open your camera so we may take a picture. I will take the screenshot on my screen. So everyone on layer 1, would you please open your camera and give us your very best smile this afternoon or morning or night time in wherever you are right now. So everyone from slide 1, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, slide 2, please.
If I may,
oh
yes, second, sorry. No.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a comment. I just realized we didn't talk about why gastrodiplomacy is important, but it's probably because I think we all know that how to go to someone's heart better than through their stomach. That is the best way to steal a heart. It's through their stomach. So that is the whole point of gastrodiplomacy. Sorry,
couldn't agree more.
Late, but it's something that I think is very intuitive.
Yeah, that's true. I don't definitely never take someone out when they're on an empty stomach, right? Okay, let's move on into our photo session. We're still on slide 2, so everyone on slide 2, let's give it a big smile to the camera, and we'll take the picture in 1, 2, 3. Okay, slide 3, 1, 2, 3. And finally, slide 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, as I said and mentioned earlier before, this is the end of today's session. I would like to thank Madam Dambron one more time for your amazing presentation and amazing suggestions and insights regarding gastrodiplomacy and Indonesian culture abroad. We were very delightful, and hopefully we'll see you again, be it in Paris, in Indonesia, or in another online platform such as this one. And for all the participants, after this, you may leave the meeting, and we will see you again tomorrow with sessions from Madam Shirley Charlotte Henry Petipelli and Miss Gladys Ariela. And just a little sneak peek for tomorrow's session, we are going to learn about a form of Indonesian culture too, but this time it will be in the form of dancing. So for all of you who would like to prepare, you may prepare yourselves for an amazing session of dancing and knowing Indonesian culture a bit deeper. So prepare for tomorrow, everyone. That is all from me. Have a pleasant day and have a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Pleasant day. Thank you very much for the invitation and the attention of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Stephanie.
Madam Dambron.